What if I told you your past is not nearly as objective as you think it is? Not fake, not imaginary, not all in your head, but filtered, edited, narrated, shaped by a version of you that was hurt, overwhelmed, scared, heartbroken, or just trying really hard to survive. And here's the wild part. Most of us are still living our lives based on stories we wrote about ourselves 20 or 30 years ago. Stories like, I'm too much. People always leave. I always screw things up. Keep in mind some of those stories were written by a 10-year-old with no frontal lobe. So today we're talking about how to change your past. Not by denying what happened, but by changing the story you've been carrying ever since. And honestly, this might be one of the most freeing things you'll ever learn. There's a concept in psychology and literature called the unreliable narrator. It means the person telling the story isn't necessarily lying, but they're telling it through their own imperfect memories and emotional filter. And congratulations, that is every single one of us. Your brain is constantly editing your life story, highlighting certain moments, ignoring others, adding meaning, making conclusions. That's how humans survive. We create narratives to make sense of pain. But sometimes those narratives become prisons. For example, maybe your husband cheated years ago, and somewhere deep down your brain translated that into, I wasn't enough. Everyone will betray me. Or maybe your mother criticized your appearance your whole childhood, and now at 52 years old you still walk into every room assuming people are judging how you look. Or maybe one failed business, one divorce, one betrayal became, see, nothing ever works out for me. The event happened, but the story attached to it? That part is optional. And this matters because your brain treats repeated stories like truth. If you tell yourself for 20 years, I'm always abandoned, your mind starts scanning your life for evidence that confirms it. That's why two people can go through almost the exact same experience and come out with completely different identities. Or two siblings growing up in the same household can have completely different versions of events. One says, that broke me. The other says, that woke me up. Same event. Different narration, different future. And once you understand that, you stop treating your thoughts like gospel. Your past doesn't live where you think it does. Here's the part that completely changed how I think about healing. Your past does not exist physically anymore. It's over. What exists right now is only your memory of it, your interpretation of it, your story about it. And before anybody panics, I am not saying painful things didn't happen. Some of us went through devastating things: divorce, abandonment, financial ruin, toxic relationships, being dismissed. Those things mattered. But the meaning you assigned to them? That part can evolve, because maybe your divorce wasn't proof you were unlovable. Maybe it was the first time you finally stopped abandoning yourself. Maybe getting fired wasn't evidence you failed. Maybe it forced you to build the life you actually wanted. Maybe aging isn't evidence your value is disappearing. Maybe it's the first time in your life you're finally becoming yourself instead of performing for everyone else. That's why changing your story is powerful, not because it changes the facts, because it changes your identity, and identity changes everything. Now let's talk about the stories that quietly run so many women's lives. Because by this point, most women are carrying entire libraries of stories about themselves. The I have to hold everything together story. The I am not good enough story. The my best years are behind me story. And the dangerous thing is these thoughts stop feeling like thoughts. They start feeling like facts. But thoughts are not facts. Just because a thought is familiar doesn't make it true. And honestly, a lot of us stay loyal to painful stories because they feel predictable and comfortable, because actually changing your story means stepping into the unknown. It means admitting, maybe I'm not actually broken. Maybe I'm not doomed. Maybe I've underestimated myself for years. And weirdly, that can feel terrifying, because once you stop seeing yourself as powerless, you have to make different choices. You have to stop shrinking and apologizing. Stop waiting for permission. Stop introducing yourself to the world as the worst thing that ever happened to you. I know, rude. But your future deserves better than a story written by your oldest wounds. 3 ways to start rewriting your story. So let's make this practical. Here are 3 tools that genuinely help retrain the way your brain relates to your past. Tool 1, the third person shift. Take a painful memory and write about yourself in third person. Not, I was devastated. Write, she was devastated. Sarah felt completely abandoned. Lisa was trying her best. This sounds small, but psychologically, it creates emotional distance. This is actually one of the first exercises we do inside Master Your Mind because it completely changes how women relate to themselves emotionally. And suddenly, instead of judging yourself, you start seeing yourself with compassion. You stop seeing yourself as pathetic and start seeing a human being doing her best with the tools she had. That changes everything. Tool 2, the evidence list. Write down the story you've been believing, maybe, I am not strong enough. Now force yourself to list actual evidence against it. Not feelings, facts. You raised children. You survived heartbreak. You rebuilt after loss. You handled things that the 10 years ago version of you could never have imagined surviving. Your brain naturally collects evidence for your pain. You have to intentionally collect evidence for your strength. Tool 3, the reframe question. Ask yourself, what else could this experience mean? That's it. Not toxic positivity. Not pretending everything was magical. Just, what's another possible interpretation? Maybe rejection redirected you. Maybe loneliness taught you boundaries. Maybe your breakdown forced your rebirth. Maybe the thing that hurt you also introduced you to yourself. Because the meaning of your life is not fixed. It evolves as you evolve. And that is incredibly hopeful. The part I really need you to hear. I think a lot of women spend decades using their past as evidence against themselves. Evidence they're too late, too damaged, too emotional, too old, too far gone. Meanwhile, your past is also full of evidence of your resilience. Look at everything you've already survived. Look at the version of you that kept going anyway. You are not who you were at 30 or 25 or even last year. You have learned, adapted, evolved, healed, and no matter what your brain tells you, that matters. You are not starting over. You are starting wiser. So here's the truth. Your past may have shaped you, but it does not get to permanently define you. You are allowed to update the story. You are allowed to see yourself differently. You are allowed to become someone new. This is how you change your past. And if this kind of work speaks to you, if you're ready to stop being ruled by old narratives and finally learn how to manage your mind intentionally, that is exactly what we do inside my course, Master Your Mind. I'll put the details below. And if this video hit home for you, leave me a comment and tell me, what's one story about yourself you're finally ready to let go of? And I'll see you in the next video.